frankly, I think education is one field that can stand to benefit the most from AI. I mean, every single child or student or learner in the world can have a super high quality teacher that is working with them throughout life. I mean, that is a game changer. When we launched edX in 2011, I still remember in an opening speech at the announcement conference with Harvard and MIT, I said, look, I'd like to reach 1 billion people around the world.
So I know this is an interview, but I'll give you my opinion. I always felt the open source part of OpenEdX was just one part of the story. And I've always been frustrated with the fact that the courses themselves are not shared between platforms. So we have this whole community of people launching OpenEdX platforms, and we don't really share our courses.
I'm into sharing in a big way. My initial course on edX out of MIT, we divided that into 3 courses, and I've open sourced the 3 courses under a CC by SA open source license.
So
it's a shared course in that sense. But that said, I think your question had to do with everybody creating courses on OpenEdX instances. Isn't there a way to somehow syndicate or somehow share all the courses?
There is.
And I would, frankly, I would love to see every single course that has been created. Maybe they all single sign on into edx.org or something, and anybody can go and learn and take any course from anywhere, and we can find ways. I know people are spending money and livelihoods have to be supported and so on. So maybe if people pay for a course, there's a way to revenue share across all of that. And so I would love to find a way to see that.
It's not just that. I would really love to be able to pick a course from MIT and like take a unit and use it in my real life programming class with high schoolers, and maybe modify some content and share that content again, and maybe MIT will pull some of my content.
You're speaking very much like a software developer.
Yeah, I am.
It will never happen.
Okay.
And so in software, we are really well versed in borrowing and pieces of content. We use libraries, and whether it's various Python libraries or AI libraries, or it doesn't matter, IO libraries. The culture of sharing. We share libraries. We share code. Very rarely do I write, if I write a new program, very rarely do I start writing from scratch. My style is I usually pick various bits and pieces and sort of club them together and build a program and then iterate upon it. That same thing hasn't happened in content production. Content still is a very bottoms-up activity. And there have been many efforts at writing textbooks through an open source model. And very few examples have worked. Very, very few examples have worked. I've written a textbook, and my colleague and I wrote a 1,200 or 1,300 page book where we borrow and reference other pieces of work, but largely our work. There's a real reluctance and a real anxiety for people to share bodies of their work where somebody creates another course based on other pieces of work. Testing is hard. I think that's the other issue. With code, you have unit tests. And so you can test whether something that you've introduced still works with a testing library or with regression tests. With content, it's very hard to have regression tests. And often with content, in creating a book or a course, there is a viewpoint. And to my knowledge, we don't have tests that will test whether a new piece of content that's embedded violates that central thesis or the philosophy that I had through the course. Maybe AI will fix that. But until we get such a test, I don't think that sharing of content and creating new works based on previous pieces of content will ever happen.
But isn't it happening right now with AI? I mean, this library of content that you're describing. I mean, the big AI companies have already illegally swallowed all of this content and redistributing it in the form of Gen AI.
Yes, they are doing that, and a lot of the people that produce the original content are extraordinarily unhappy. So the New York Times,
Rightly
for example,
so, yeah.
sued OpenAI, and I think until all of that can be figured out, I don't think that creating content in a collaborative manner will work. We haven't figured out how revenue gets distributed when you create shared content. We haven't figured out how credit gets distributed. We haven't figured out how to create a textbook or a piece of art that has a unified theme based on sharing pieces of content. So I think there are a lot of things to be figured out, and before something like that can become truly prevalent. I think the closest open source shared piece of work that I've seen is Wikipedia. Where with Wikipedia, it's just truly a big open source effort. But there you are creating a gigantic encyclopedia, where an encyclopedia, by its very nature, it's easy to create. A dictionary or an encyclopedia is easy to create through sharing. But a unified essay, I think it's very hard to create a unified essay extolling the virtues of democracy, for example. It's much harder to do, I think, with 100 people collaborating and providing 3 sentences each.
Yeah, I'm constantly astounded by the stability of Wikipedia. I remember editing Wikipedia 20 years ago, 2005. And it seems to me that Wikipedia hasn't fundamentally changed since then.
Yeah.
Whereas companies have come and hyped and bankrupt since then. Facebook was created like a few years later. I think it was 2006.
2006, 7, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who uses Facebook anymore, especially among the younger ones.
I think the older generations, I particularly don't, but the older generation still seems to. So
yeah, so it's way past hype, I would say. Though obviously there are other products by Meta, but yeah, so they must have gotten something right there.
Yes, indeed.
So are we touching upon one of your frustrations with AI? Like the fact that the AI companies are taking this content and not sharing the revenue and not sharing the copyright. Is that one of your frustrations? Do you think about that a lot, or are you just not thinking about it?
I'm certainly thinking about it, and I'm in 2 minds about that. On the one side, I take a very world-centric, humanity-centric view where everybody creates information for the social good. It's a very socialist view, I would say. Whatever we do, whatever everybody does is for the common good. And so whatever people do, they put it out into the open source. And by doing so, any machine or anybody should be able to freely borrow and use any piece of content so that all of humanity progresses. But any one individual may not stand out. So that's a very socialistic view. And if you take that view, then what these companies and machines are doing is a very good thing, because it's overall good for humanity that progress happens. On the other hand, there's the view that says, if individuals that are creating content and are producing the atoms upon which the big AI structures are based, and if those individuals don't see some benefit from it, in our society, few people do things for just, few things today, at least in capitalistic societies, do things for the common good. People will do things for their own good, and then if it helps the community, great. But ultimately, it comes from a selfish interest. The progress is based upon ultimately a selfish interest, which is it good for me? So that's a completely opposite view. If you take that view, then AI can be hurting us tremendously, because it may remove the incentive for people to generate and create original ideas upon which these big engines are based, or the ideas that are harvested for the big engines to use. And so innovation and creativity may be seriously affected because of that. So, at the end of the day, both extremes are bad. And so, as with everything in the world, as I said earlier, the answer is likely in the middle.
So do you swing from optimism to pessimism?
Yeah, and so
on the news on AI?
I completely swing from optimism to pessimism, and on average, I'm a nice practical realist.
Smack in the middle then. with a tendency to optimism, I would say.
Oh, a tendency toward optimism for sure. There are times when I'm petrified by AI, and then at times when I think AI can solve every problem known to mankind. It can solve, AI and computation will solve for cancer, and all of these things will happen in the not too distant future. But at the same time, I also cringe and I'm petrified at the thought of what can happen if bad actors, hold sway. I mean, look at what's happened with the whole nuclear proliferation. The nuclear weaponry had the potential to destroy humanity, and so now the whole world is petrified. One maniac can destroy the world, and so that is really, really scary. And so AI has the same potential, and so there are days when I'm petrified. How do you you may prevent 10 maniacs or 12 maniacs, but how do you prevent the 1,000,001st maniac from not doing something crazy? And so, that's the same thing with nuclear weapons. And so, but on the good side, with AI, there's so much good that can be done. Like, frankly, I think education is one field that can stand to benefit the most from AI. I mean, every single child or student or learner in the world can have a super high quality teacher that is working with them throughout life. I mean, that is a game changer. But why should only the rich have access to high quality education? Why can't everybody have access to high quality education?
And that's my personal big worry, that we have constructed the structures of society that encourage an evil use of these open technologies. We have established structures that encourage monopoly and survival of the fittest. And
See, I think that's the reason why open source is so important. And in this community, this is all about open source. Everybody here believes that I'm going to create innovation, and most of the people here are contributing that innovation back to society. That's the example that I use, which is middle ground, where you're creating innovation because it benefits you in some respect. You have a business, or you're doing good and you're feeling good, but you're also putting it back into the community, so the whole community can benefit and leverage it to go to the next level. I'm a big believer that same thing should happen to AI, that I think AI should be open source. And, I think great AI developers, great engineers, I think should be insisting that they will only contribute if it's open source. Now, Open edX and edX is certainly not in the caliber of advancement of humanity like AI is, but I know any number of engineers and content providers that I've worked with in my now almost 15-year-old journey with edX, where they are only contributing because of the increase in access and because of open source, that they would not have been contributing to the platform or to the content if they knew this wasn't going to be open source. So I think I'd say, engineers and content developers are driving the AI revolution. I would say that insist that your developments are open, so that the world can benefit from it, as opposed to one company or one entity. And I think that will enable it from not falling into the wrong hands. It will also enable it to, it will create transparency. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. And so by making it open source, everybody can look at code and make sure that there's no malicious uses of code. So open source can have huge benefits for AI.
Obviously, I'm a big fan of open source.
I know that.
And I think, I'm also a big fan of copyleft licenses that make sure that software that uses my software is also open source.
Yes. Same thing with my course. Our circuits courses are open source in the sense that they're CC by SA.
Yeah.
So they're not NC. So people can use it for even commercial purposes as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But CC is Creative Commons.
And then attribution.
And there's attribution. Frankly, I don't care about attribution. So CC by SA. So that by doesn't really matter. So I don't care. But really the SA matters, which is if you borrow the code, or if you borrow the content and you make improvements, then you give it back to the community. So that's the copyleft part of it.
And yet, as an engineer, I'm building software that makes use of AI models. And right now, I'm very worried because I do not have access to good, cheap, open models. And I find myself facing a bottleneck where software that I used to create was very cheap because it was running on cheap servers. And now I'm worried first that I cannot build the software that I want because I'm depending on models that are expensive. And then my users will also have to pay the cost. And so I will not be able to reach as many users as I used to.
I think there's a danger. But my hope is that there are enough forces out there that are looking at open source AI that will create stacks that are open source. That it's a matter of time before very powerful open source models come out. And frankly, today the AI models use massive amounts of computation. But some of the more smaller models that are coming out of places that don't have access to the massive amounts of computation are being innovative and creating models that don't need that large amount of computation and so on. And so my hope is that open source will leapfrog where AI is going in terms of kind of the big data, kind of the big enterprise, and maybe start favoring the small enterprise by creating new models and new algorithms that can be done with small amounts of data, small amounts of resources.
Focusing on those open models, do you think edX or Axim, the foundation that is now behind OpenEdX, do you think these entities should be focusing on building and producing and sharing models like that, or should that be left to other entities?
No, I think at the end of the day, the way that software has been developed, it's very rare that one organization or company does everything. And so I'd be surprised if the OpenEdX community itself or edX itself builds out new kinds of AI algorithms per se, or AI core AI developments. I see them as really leveraging AI as an applications area for AI, and leveraging AI for the benefit of teachers and for the benefit of students. And there are many such examples where these AI models have been leveraged.
As an engineer, I also feel much more comfortable as a creator of applications on top of AI, even though those models are not open. I feel like it's a much better space to be in right now. I wouldn't want to be in this cutthroat fight among AI providers. And I think edX is also in this space, right? You guys are building features, building courses by leveraging many of these AI models.
So we are building many features by leveraging AI models. But what we've done is that there's so many models out there, and the cost of using a model, the performance of a model, the privacy benefits and constraints that various models give keep changing by the day, and there is a fair amount of competition in the field. And so the way we are building our AI tooling within edX is API, application specific interface based, where we create application technologies ourselves, but we create these interfaces that can be steered from one model to another, depending on which is better for a certain thing.
Better, cheaper,
faster, better performance.